Start the meeting. All right. Let me let's call it to order. Okay, so what we do, Owens, this is our usual procedure. You know me, and I don't know if you know everybody here, but our little names are up there. But we're just going to do the roll call, and Kelly is recording this, right, Kelly?
Yep.
Okay.
So I'll just go down the list and you can say here after your name.
Okay.
India Beal.
Here.
David Finn.
Here.
Dara Silver.
Here.
Betsy Towns.
Here.
Elizabeth Rapetti.
Here.
Janie Wilson.
Here.
Jane Dabb.
Here.
Barbara Campbell.
Here.
Owens Daniels.
Here.
And John Rushton.
Here. I'm still last, even with the new guy. Unbelievable.
Okay, well, our first action is the approval of the minutes. So do I have a motion to approve of the minutes from the last two sessions? Should I do these separately, Kelly, or can we do them both at the same time?
Let's do them separately.
Okay, so the meeting from September 1st, we'd like to have a motion for approving those minutes.
So moved.
Who was that?
Janie moved to approve. A second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Well, second.
Okay, and then I'll do the vote. So India Beal.
Yeah, I agree.
David Finn.
Yeah, I agree.
Dara Silver.
Agree.
Betsy Towns.
Yes.
Elizabeth Rapetti.
Approve.
Janie Wilson.
Yes, approved.
Jane Dabb.
Approved.
Barbara Campbell.
Approved.
Owens Daniels.
Approved.
And John Rushton.
Approved.
Okay. Unanimous.
Okay, now for September 17th. And we didn't have a quorum for that. And, but still the minutes are there. And so if you read them over, or maybe if you haven't read them over, I think we need to approve those. So Kelly?
So do we have a motion to approve?
So moved. This is Betsy.
Okay. A second.
Sarah, second.
Okay, I'll go the opposite way this time, just for John. So John Rushton.
What? Oh, yes, I approve.
Owens Daniels.
Approved.
Barbara Campbell.
Approved.
Jane Dabb.
Approved.
Janie Wilson.
Approved.
Elizabeth Rapetti.
Approved.
Betsy Towns.
Approved.
Dara Silver.
Approved.
David Finn.
Approved.
And India Beal.
Approved.
All right.
Okie doke. So now we want to move on to the public art plan, and then the bus shelters, the project reports, and then finally the rescheduling of November meeting. So Kelly, why don't you give us the facts and the action on the public art plan for the hearing.
Okay, I have a very short presentation for the public art plan, since you all are very familiar with it. Everybody see the PowerPoint slide there? So as you are all aware, and let me just see if there's anybody waiting to come into the meeting. I don't think we have any guests here who might want to comment on it. So the public art plan sets the agenda for the next 10 years for city and county public art investments. It has a vision, which is the guiding principles of the plan, goals and actions. which are how we achieve the plan's vision, and then project recommendations, which are locations for public art projects. This is the public art vision. This is pretty wordy, but I'll go through it. We'll continue to add large-scale public art pieces to downtown Winston-Salem, but we'll also create art for our many neighborhoods, parks, and community facilities. We'll create public art that reflects our diverse community, highlights BIPOC artists, and is balanced between our many neighborhoods. It's crucial that public art not be used to cause gentrification and displacement in minority neighborhoods. We will grow our public art ecosystem of local artists, fabricators, and other support industries into a regional leader. We will collaborate with community organizations who share our goals of bringing more public art to Winston-Salem and Forsyth County, and we will care for, maintain, and instill pride in our growing public art collection. You'll see this table is expanded a little bit in the latest version of the plan. Dara's asking, I added Asheville, Raleigh, and then after I published, I got the information from Charlotte. I never did hear from Wilmington, so we have those additional towns in here. But the reason why this is important is because it kind of shows how what towns are using percent for art and kind of what budgets they're using and how much staff they have. And that's because percent for art is one of the more important goals in this plan. So these are the 5 goals of the plan. I didn't include all the actions in this presentation, but this gives you an idea of what the plan hopes to achieve. And goal 1 is include public art in future city and county investments such as parks, libraries, recreation centers, greenways, and streetscape improvements. And that's basically a call for percent for art funding. Goal 2 is to increase public art funding for projects at existing parks, greenways, libraries, municipal buildings, downtown Winston-Salem, and neighborhoods. And these are different ways of getting public art through other kind of budget items. Goal 3, help foster a local public art economy that develops local artists, fabricators, and other related businesses. Goal 4 is to raise community awareness of the City County Public Art Program. And then goal 5 is to care for and manage our growing public art collection. Public art projects for the next decade. This is part of the plan that has a number of project ideas, has locations, and then some ideas for different types of public art projects. And it should be stated that currently we could probably do between 12 and 15 public art projects over the next 10 years. And then with recommended larger budgets, we could increase that to 25 to 30 projects and possibly more, but we don't want to overpromise in case we get some really big, complicated projects in there as well. So we have lots of ideas for projects in downtown. There are 80 city parks, 9 county parks, 14 greenway segments, and that number is always increasing. So there are lots of locations for public art in those areas. Community gateways, lots of places as you enter the city or enter different neighborhoods that are great for some prominent public art. There's a picture of a city-owned water tank on US 52. That would be a very prominent place for a mural. Public art can honor significant people in our community. Go to our public facilities. And then we have some ideas for special projects that we've discussed, including making the invisible visible, some ideas that Betsy has really proposed, and then ideas for places where we're divided. And then other initiatives could be, expanding the bus shelter program, crosswalks, traffic signal boxes, items like that. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I like the picture.
A good job as usual, Kelly. That looks really good.
It looks great.
Thank you.
Kelly, so this is for a council meeting?
Yeah, this will be, the Public Art Commission would be adopting this plan. And then since there are so many items that are asking the city council and the county commissioners to do some things, will go on to both of those bodies after this.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. I mean, you've done a lot of work on this over the course of about a year, right? It's taken?
Yeah, maybe even longer, just because we did a lot of talking. We had those kind of workshop kind of meetings over at Center for Design Innovation, and then kind of driving around town and meeting at the ArtSig building. So this has had a lot of brainstorming and a lot of kind of ideas from public art members over a long period of time. So it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, Owens, you're new, but we've been working on this for quite a while. It's had a lot of input and a lot of public meetings, a lot of back and forth. So just so you know, it looks like something that Kelly just did, but when did we start? It's been a while. It's been a while.
It was an outline for a very long time.
Yeah.
It looked like it has longevity built into it. It's been a while. I talked to Kelly when he first called me in, and I've read it, and he cleared up a lot of misconceptions about what public art is and its role in the community and its future. So I can tell that it took some time to put this together.
Right. Kelly's loved every minute of it, though. He talks a lot about how much he's enjoyed the voyage. I think is the best way.
Especially with a new baby at home.
New baby, she's 4.
I just think you have another baby.
You know what?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was really.
It's been that long.
Yeah, she was just born when we started this, so.
I have to say, having participated in a couple of those community meetings, that it was really a good thing to, even though sometimes the meetings were very small, we listened to people and talked to people about what their ideas were about public art. And so, I mean, it was maybe small scale in terms of educating people and letting people know, but I think, a lot of people in our community don't always know what, public art can do. And so I think that helped some, and maybe with this, it'll gain even more traction. So we're kind of hopeful that, right, Kelly, that this can sort of propel us to the next level of really working with the community even more.
Yeah, I hope so. And I'll put it in the presentations for city council and the county commissioner, but we did have, even though we didn't have maybe, huge in-person meetings, we did use online surveys, and we received, I think, 900 responses on our first survey. That was kind of helping shape the plan. And then after a draft of the plan was posted online, we sent out another survey and got 100 responses from that. So it has had lots of citizen input over the course of its writing.
Would you please let us know when the city council is going to take this up, so maybe we could watch their meeting?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we just need you to vote on it after you're done discussing and having any questions.
I move to adopt it.
Second,
Who was second?
Janie.
Janie. All right. I'll go through the roll then, unless there's more discussion. Okay. India Beal,
I approve.
David Finn,
I approve.
Dara Silver,
I approve.
Betsy Towns,
I approve.
Elizabeth Rapetti,
I approve.
Janie Wilson,
I approve.
Jane Dabb,
I approve.
Barbara Campbell,
I approve.
Owens Daniels,
Approve.
and John Rushton.
I approve.
All right. Very good.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Kelly.
Bravo, Kelly.
Great.
Thank you all.
Who brought the champagne? Anyone? No?
No,
No.
nobody.
Well, I think the champagne comes after the city council maybe
Proves it, yeah.
approves it. That would be great. I mean, I know it seems like a time when there's going to be belt tightening and, well, I won't go into the economics of it, just to say that sometimes when there is this is the time to be doing this so that when the money starts flowing again, we can be hopefully in line to be able to have some for the arts.
Would it be appropriate for us to contact the council members that we know personally to say it's coming and hope they'll approve it?
Yeah, that would be fun.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Let's see.
Yeah, that sounds good. Do that. I'll contact Dan Bessie and see if sometimes he was a little cranky about it, these things. He wanted the bike path above all, but I'll see if I can lean on him.
Yeah, like the lean on like that,
Yeah, with all my power.
Yeah, it's full.
Remember, they're all up for re-election this year.
That's right. It's a good time.
Except Dan's running for something else.
Dan.
He's been there a long time. What's next on the agenda, Kelly?
Artistic bus shelters. So we just finished the artistic bus shelters. It's 12 temporary pieces of art. And when that group was first meeting, Betsy and who else was in there? Was that Janie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anybody else? Was Jane in there? No. But that group kind of saw this project as multi-stage
Yes.
with temporary projects and then possibly like a more permanent. But that was pre-COVID. And that was when there was more money in the bank. But I wanted to kind of bring it up for discussion, just kind of to see what the appetite was for, for further artistic bus shelters in 2021, or hold off for a time period before moving on to phase 2, maybe concentrate on any other projects.
Well, I think it's a lot of bang. Go ahead, Betsy.
Go ahead.
I just think it's a lot of bang for the buck. So from that standpoint, if we have reduced budget, it might be something we could tackle, or y'all could tackle, or whatever, for the next year. If we had bigger budget, we might want to save some of that money for like Marshall Park Plaza or whatever else. But I do feel like it's a good bang for the buck, and I've had good feedback from people that have mentioned it to me.
I was just going to say that the original concept was that phase 2 would include bus shelters that were place-based and maybe shed light on the history of a spot or particular cultural elements in that location, or something about the physical, geographical diversity, biodiversity, some aspect of the locations. So we had talked about doing possibly something that wasn't a big increase in money, but maybe was a little bit more increase in research and in connection to place. And that does still seem relevant. That would involve more of our time doing some background work and pinpointing particular shelters that might lend themselves to, an individual or a historical moment, et cetera. But it does seem like it would add another level and another layer to that project that might be really valuable. Mm-hmm. And the community member, Martha Eller, who was such a driving force behind the project, is very eager to continue to, bring people together to do some of that research. And Indy and I are working on a different project that is about kind of citywide history. And there has been some talk that maybe some of the research that's going on around particularly African-American history in Winston-Salem might become resource material for the shelters. So it may be that, and I could imagine other groups wanting to combine on doing some of that research.
Yeah, I thought the public thing we did for that
And I second what Janie said about the bang for the buck.
What's that?
I also just second what Janie said about the bang for the buck, that people, they're beautiful. They change the experience of riding the bus for lots of people. It's such a diverse and interesting set of projects.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I thought the public meeting when we first started it was really exciting. It was just so nice to see that. It was such a diverse group and people were excited about doing it, and people from all walks of the artistic world. I thought it was really cool. It's one of the more fun things I've done since I was part of the commission. I'd love to hear from Owens about your experience with it, Owens, since you're the first-hand guy. Tell us how you thought about it.
Well, I got firsthand from several parts of it. One, I had the experience of catching the bus, and that's an experience within itself. And having an anticipated bus shelter when you go to get the bus, or not having one, that's two different experiences. The other thing that I did was I went to where my bus shelter was and sat there and caught, even though I had a car, I caught the bus from that shelter where my artwork is, because I wanted to experience, what does it feel to have artwork? And there were one or two people there, and I engaged them in a conversation, and the experience of having artwork present and not present made a difference to them. One, it was just a bus shelter. If it rained or if the sun was shining, it's a bus shelter. I got to wait for the bus. The bus is taking too long. When I talked to them, well, how do you feel about the artwork? Oh, this artwork is nice, and it gives me something to look at. I'm not preoccupied with the bus coming now, and I feel like it's a nice place. It became a destination to them versus just being a bus stop. So, and I felt that way as well when I walked up to it. Even though I knew that was my artwork, I walked up to it and I was like, man, this is pretty nice. And as I sat there, I had more of a comforting feeling versus the transparent windows, the traffic's going by, this is the bus, and I'm waiting on the bus. So I can say, not for everyone, but the people that I've talked to, and experience that I've had myself was, it changed my mood. That mood can change, that could translate into the rest of their day. It could translate into taking something off their mind that's bothering them. You can translate that any kind of way that you would like. But I can say that the people that I've talked to, and my experience of catching the bus from that bus station over to another shelter that I knew artwork was there, and then, just kind of doing that little loop one day, it was pleasant. It was really nice. So I think that the city, the commission is getting bang for their buck, if we're going to use that word, and that it's changing some people's life. Because everywhere I stopped, if there was someone there, I engaged them in the conversation about how does it feel to catch the bus. You know, some people this is new. Some people felt like, oh, you know, somebody's going to damage it by marking on it or whatever they're going to do. But the overall feeling was it changed my mood. It made me feel better. So I think that as a commission, we have done a good thing.
Hey,
I love the tagline, changed my mood, made me feel better.
yeah, that's wonderful.
Definitely, it's great.
Did you sign the autographs?
And I would encourage all of you, you know, to go to the bus shelters, park your car and talk to people sitting there waiting for the bus, and then catch the bus. You know, let's catch it and come back to your car. You're going to find, you know, it's different than sitting here on Zoom. And it's different about how people feel like how the money is being spent or how it's being used, because they're the end user. They're the ones who are paying property taxes. They're the ones who are inputting into the city. But yeah, it was different when I was on the bus versus sitting here with you.
Right.
And I think that is what I like to engage public art. Whenever there's public art, I go engage it. You know, I go engage it wherever it is, and then I engage the people around it or in that environment to kind of get a feel of, you know, why it's there to them. What does it matter? And does it change something? And that's just something that I do.
Awesome.
I wonder, Kelly, do you have in mind how many more we could do for a year? In terms of both administration and just the finances, the money. So how many more we could do, and what
I mean, I think we could do. I mean, it really just depends on how. Like, if this is more, depends on who's doing the research, how much you're paying the artists. Really, I mean. It cost $20,000 to do the project last time, and that was for 12 shelters. You know, we might be able to we could maybe do that again. There aren't a lot of shelters around. There are probably another 12 for sure. But to spread them out, like we did, might be better to do fewer shelters, but I mean, it depends. I would start with the research first to see what kind of stories you want to tell, if that's the direction you go in, and if you want to make them temporary again with the vinyl wrap. You know, once we got that figured out, it was actually pretty easy. So if we could tell everybody up front, this is going to be the vinyl wrap, and here are your exact measurements, and then and if we know the shelters ahead of time and everything, that would make things easier and possibly even cheaper.
Are they all still in perfect shape?
As far as I know, I mean, I haven't checked on them lately, but
Right.
From what I'm told, like they should last a while. I mean, they should last just because they're not in the weather; they're inside the shelter.
Right.
I was thinking also in terms of what Betsy was talking about for research. Am I muted? No. Okay.
No.
I've been muted a lot as of lately. So what Betsy was saying in terms of research and maybe even the perception that people have when it comes to riding the bus. And when Owens was talking, I was thinking about one of my colleagues rode the bus. He's from Canada, a white guy who's doing anesthesiology over at Wake Forest. And he took the bus because he's used to taking the bus. And he got on the bus and everybody was looking at him like he was crazy. Like, what are you doing on the bus? And even someone even asked him just outright, like, yo, are you lost? You know, like, he's like on the bus, you know? And so he said it was the most, as a white man on a bus with mostly people of color, he said it was the most surreal kind of odd experience he had in a long time. But I thought, but you know, and he continued to write it. He said it was actually really interesting being on the bus and coming from Canada and used to public transportation, but here is very different. And so obviously there's a perception thing that's happening in terms of who rides the bus, who doesn't ride the bus. If someone gets on the bus, there's normally not usually that kind of person, you know, like how people perceive it. So the research maybe could be even further than just say communities of color, but also showing people that maybe in terms of our public transportation, there may be a certain kind of, you know, there may be a stigma, but the bus is for everybody, right? And that shouldn't exist. So maybe there's a way to change that perception of riding the bus, or even, you know, I don't know. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I just thought about when Owens was talking, I was thinking about Marcus's experience of being on the bus and coming here and just, you know, and getting called out for being on the bus, you know, and people were looking at him really odd. So I don't know. It could be a way to think about even perception in terms of like imagery for research.
I could even imagine some really artfully done material, like encouraging people to take the bus in order to heal the environment, or, you know, some, you know, it could be kind of graphic, some data-driven infographics or something like that, that help people see why we should all jump on the bus instead of leaving it to only people of color typically riding the bus. Yeah.
Like just changing the perception. I think there's this perception. I've never rode the bus myself, so just thinking about, you know, but then you think Winston-Salem is kind of it's a driving city, right? You're not really, but I think about other cities I've lived in where I took the bus all the time, you know, and things were closer in proximity. It just made sense. So I don't know, like, but that's more walking towns, I think, where you're thinking about, I don't know, it could change the way we think about it.
Be great to start.
There's a perception. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, it'd be great to start at the bus station itself. It's such a dreary place. I thought that when we had that meeting there, all those excited people were there talking about art, and it was just like, you know, just this blank canvas there. There's nothing exciting about it, or, you know, that'd be a great place to start with what India is talking about, just right at the bus station itself.
Well, I spent a lot of time street shooting, so I can tell you a great deal about the bus station. Having spent a lot of time there. And again, for a year catching the bus, you know, as my means of transportation, getting from where I live, you know, back into the city, the dangers of catching the bus. I mean, you can imagine from my front door to my bus station that takes me into the city is approximately 1 mile. And along that 1 mile, there is about less than a quarter of the mile that has a sidewalk. That means 3/4 of the time, you're either walking in the street or you're walking along the side of the street. And I used to imagine this invisible white line that's on the street. You know, that was my shield. That was my barrier against 2.5 tons of cars that's traveling at 35 miles an hour that can't see me. Because if you're honest about it, when you're driving your car, you really don't notice the people outside your window, and particularly people at the bus stop. The people at the bus stop are invisible to you. Another thing we have this, and I've learned this firsthand, there's this perception about class, economics, color, all that things happen about a person standing at the bus stop. And the reason I know that to be is because I experimented with it. One day, I put on like some homeless clothes, whatever that means to anybody. And I stood there, and then I waved at people, and people didn't wave back at me. Next day, I showed up in a suit. I had a briefcase. You know, I looked like I was going to work, or I was a student or something. I dressed in a whole different thing. Then I waved at people. Everybody waved back at me. Some people even rolled their windows, and they said hello, because I was perturbed that I was catching the bus. It was an ego trip for me to have no options. I have to come down off my peg, and I got to catch the bus. So I got a pretty good understanding of how that part of it works. I had to go in the rain, had to go in the sun, no protection, no sidewalk. And then I got to a bus stop that was just a metal pole with a metal sign on it, no shelter. So that's one way. The people that use the bus station, I had to spend a lot of time there. You know, one of the most graphic things that I remember was about 9 o'clock at night, because that was the last bus that took me back to my area. There was a mother, and she had 2 kids, a boy, 2 boys or a girl, or something like that. And she had these bags of food. And it was after 9 o'clock at night, and it was late, and there were people hanging around, you know, just the last time the bus runs. Well, I was perturbed at her because I'm thinking, you know, what are you doing out here with your kids? You know, you have this food. And it made me correct myself because I was judging her. But what I didn't understand was that she only had the opportunity to go to Dollar Tree. I mean, I didn't talk to her, but when you look at the bus line, there wasn't a whole lot of places she could go and get food that wouldn't perish along her route. That's why she had so much fast food. And the little boy, he ate a whole quart. What got my attention, he ate a whole quart of ice cream in front of me. And I'm like, why is this kid eating this ice cream? Then it dawned on me, well, I got to eat it before it melts. And so I really came down off my high horse that night. I really, really, really did, because catching the bus, I knew that if I got off that bus, I had to cross 6 lanes to get the food line. I had to cross 6 lanes of traffic because the bus was on the opposite side of where I had to go to get the food. Then I had to cross 6 lanes of traffic and risk my life with no sidewalk to get back to the other side. So I wasn't crazy about going to get healthy food either. I wanted something that was on the same side of my bus. And if I got off that bus, I had to wait an hour. So that's why she had those bags of food, and she fed her kids right there at that bus station, because it would take her another 45 minutes to an hour, because that's what it took me to get back to where I had to go. So she had to feed them then and there. But me looking at it from the outside, I had all these criticisms and all these judgments. So before you go down to the bus station, again, I would encourage you, A, to catch the bus, B, spend some time there with people there, because it's not always putting something there thinking we're going to beautify it or we're going to make somebody's life better. They might not want it. And I think that's something we don't take into account. They may very well not want it. And most people catching the bus, they really catching the bus from either home to work or work to home. So they're not spending a lot of time like we would spend in a gallery, walking around looking at the art. But the art does make their life better, because I've had conversation, and when I saw Leo Rucker had painted the poles that's at the bus station, I think everybody remembers that. It made a little bit of a difference. It felt a little bit better. But I'm not there that I'm in a gallery looking at art for art's sake. So having conversations with people who catch the bus and sitting down there and seeing how you feel, you know, not dressed how we dress now, but that's dressed like you see the people and that's spend some time there, you know, and you're going to find it's a different experience than having the meeting about, you know, how do they feel. So catch the bus and having put an art on into that situation gave me 2 different experiences, but the experience of catching a bus from my bus shelter and then riding around and talking to people is different than the Zoom meeting that I'm having now.
I'm wondering whether it would be appropriate to think also about actually having some shelters designed and talking to the transportation department about splitting the cost of what they would be spending on shelters and actually designing the shelters and doing the shelters themselves rather than simply decorating shelters too, as a possibility for projects going forward. Maybe trying to do like something like that once a year, or trying out that approach to expand the number of shelters as well, or maybe instead of of decorating them, but that would be, just sort of to your point, Owens, the idea that there are a lot of stops that simply don't have shelters. And that
A lot. There's a lot.
Yeah.
Winston-Salem only has 14% of an average city of bus shelters. Only that's it. There's some, I did this study of, when I caught that bus, I paid a lot of attention. And so I went out and did my own research. How many bus stops? How many bus shelters? Where are those bus shelters? I haven't been in those conditions. And having a lot of conversations with people on the bus, whether there's, like India brought up an excellent thing, very few white people caught the bus. And the white people that was on because I had to catch 3 buses. So the different buses I went on, the white people that were on the bus, the black people knew those white people. And I could tell if a different white person got on the bus, there was some discussion or there was some like, who is this person? Because they, it's just not used to seeing this person. Everybody catch the bus kind of knows each other. It's like catching the subway in the morning at 6 o'clock, you pile into it, everybody kind of knows each other. So, that's one side of it. The other side of it, I don't think so much the design. I think Betsy and India are correct in bringing value around the bus station, that it becomes a common thing, like a car. You look at your car in the parking lot, there's nothing special about it because everybody got a car. I think there's a stigma about you catch the bus because you're this class of person, or you're this type of person, and if we could start looking at that, and then how does art interact with that experience or changes that experience, and just bring dignity. I think that's the biggest problem I had with catching the bus until that night with the woman and her kids. Then I just felt like, damn, I'm just a bus catcher just like everybody else. But before that, I tried to hold on my little thread of who I was. But I think India and Betsy are correct in changing, working in the perception, and how does art change the perception? It's like church. Art changed the perception of religion by stained glass windows and all these portraits and all these things that went around art about religion. And we can do that with the bus as well.
I just dropped a link in the chat box from Durham. Durham had a call for bus shelter proposals, and they included a community engagement practice. So the selected artists would host, facilitate, and participate in community engagement activities before finalizing their designs in order to gather feedback from residents living in those respective wards where the shelters would be located. So I think that kind of addresses some of the conversation that we were having in terms of working and making sure that we're being cognizant and working with the communities that this art will be in.
Excellent. That's great. Thanks for sending that.
I think there's something also about the bus shelters and their visibility and the discrete quality of them that may make them candidates for funding that would be outside of our normal, channels from the city. And I wonder what you all would think about that. Would that take a lot of time to do, or would we have people like the woman you mentioned, Kelly, that was eager to promote more bus shelters that would have some connections that could get us some private money that would help boost up that program?
Yeah, that's my unmute. That was Martha. Betsy was mentioning Martha. Yeah, that was talked about for phase 3, but maybe it could be a phase 2.
I was thinking also based on what Owen was saying, and thank you so much, Owen, for sharing that your perspective is super helpful, 100%. Like, the fact is that maybe the bus shelters aren't placed or even the bus stops themselves aren't placed in realistic locations, right? Like Owen shouldn't have to walk over 6, lanes to get to a Food Lion, right? Or I think even Marcus, my friend who's an anesthesiologist, he crossed 52 to get to Haynes Mall. And I couldn't believe he did it, but he was like, listen, that's what the bus dropped me off, you know? So the idea is that there's probably even, maybe the city hasn't, and I don't know, maybe they haven't looked at where the bus shelters are being placed, and maybe it's not even additional bus shelters, or place them in places that actually make sense in terms of how people are using the buses, where they're going, you know, what they need to get while they're there. Does a shelter make sense in one place and maybe a shelter doesn't make sense in another? So maybe there is more research involved in making sure the placement's right, in terms of making sure it serves the people it's made for. I don't know. And even maybe there's like a route for public art. You know, like there's a bus route for public art where you can see public art, which can maybe put people on the bus that normally would never go on the bus, right? And you can take this special route through Winston-Salem to see public art that stops at different stops. It still makes sense in terms of a kind of, I don't know, a tour that people have to take anywhere, or drops people also have to make. I don't know, just giving people other incentives to want to get on the bus. Because Marcus's experience was, you know, it's hilarious, but thinking about other people needing to get on the bus and change that perception that Owens was talking about.
That's cool. Yeah, I was somewhere, so I can't remember anything from the day to day anymore. I don't even, this is Tuesday, right? I don't even know. But I was somewhere and they had an public art scavenger hunt in the town. It was really cool. They gave a little map and, you know, you went around and checked it off when you saw these different public art things. I thought that would be I was thinking, wow, that could be cool to have a bus that did that, you know, or some kind of special thing that went around and showed everybody all the public art to check it off. I don't know, maybe they get a Twinkie at the end, something. I can't remember what you got in this town, but it was really cool that they had that scavenger hunt.
A donut, of course.
A donut, of course.
Yeah.
Scavenger hunt. Oh, sorry. We did a scavenger hunt when we opened the Benton.
Right.
We had 12 different pieces of art, and I think if you saw them, you could turn it in for something.
How'd it go? It went pretty well, didn't it? Was it well received? Yeah.
Kelly, how does the transportation department, are they enthusiastic about this, or they don't care one or the other, or?
They are enthusiastic about it, but I don't think they're enthusiastic enough to put money into it. I don't think they have the budget for that. But I will say that they will. I think that we can do cost sharing if they have some shelters where they have shelters planned. So if they're going to put in a shelter, you know, they'll pay for the concrete pad and all of that stuff. And we would be paying for the, you know, the artistic shelter if we were doing sculptural shelters.
And they are doing like some of that research that India was describing. You know, they are, I think, constantly doing those kinds of measurements of, you know, what are the most used routes, what are the most used stops. You know, I assumed from what we learned from those meetings that there's also talk about just safety and thinking about safety, but it doesn't sound like it, you know, from the anecdotes shared here. But it seems like they would be game, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly, to you know, to follow up on some of those questions that we're asking, because that's the kind of research that they do, you know, about safety, or about perceptions, or about like, what do people need to know about the bus, or, you know, what kinds of routes could we add for public art, or other kinds of cultural tours, or other kinds of historical tours, or, you know, whatever it would be, to make the buses more, you know, to make more people want to ride the bus, because that is what they, you know, if more people rode the buses would go more frequently, the buses would go to more stops, the buses would have, you know, better services for people who absolutely depend on them if a broader range of people jumped on.
They make more money.
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing about this? Hello?
Yep.
Yeah.
I did a bus proposal. A lot of these questions that you have, I shared this in another project with Betsy called Waiting for the Bus.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to share a document in a group like this. Don't know how to do that. But that document, status, goals, methods, a lot of the questions you have, what I shared with, because I had to do this, I had to do this myself. And then the bus project kind of came along. And that's how it kind of worked out for me, because when you read my proposal, it talked about my experience of catching the bus. But anyway, I want to share the document with the group. So I guess I will send the document to Kelly. Is that correct?
You should be able to share it. If on the bottom of your Zoom screen it says share screen, I think you have that ability.
And you meant that you want to mail it to us.
No, I want to share it so you can read it on your own.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you can send it to me and I'll send it out to you.
I'll send it to Kelly, and particularly India talked about the one, there's a lot of commercial interest around companies want to invest in their communities, particularly where these bus stops are. Not so much from a commercial city saying that RJ Reynolds sponsors this bus shelter, but the idea that RJ Reynolds is ponying, because it costs between $5,500 to $8,500 a shelter. That's about what it runs. And so RJ Reynolds, when I talked to them about this at one time, a lot of times they would just like to invest. Yeah. Because we depended on the artists. We put an art call out and the artist brings the vision. This is what I think the bus shelter should look like. But a lot of times the artist doesn't have either refunds or the know-how to do the research of does that art work in that community. And so a lot of, I'll send the document to Kelly and Kelly can share it with the group. And it gives you a lot of information and some goals and solutions about some of the things that we are talking about. Because I think, Betsy, you wanted me to contact the woman that you're talking to now, talked about before. When we had that conversation. Yeah. So, but yeah, we can do it. And a lot of companies are, they want to invest in the communities that they're in. And this is a very easy way for them to do that. Very, 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 very easy. Because you're not talking about a lot of money. If they'll go, half or 3/4 or whatever it is %, because the bus company is looking for money. They're not looking to build something because they don't have money. So I had to come up with an idea of, well, how could you get money? Well, there's a lot of events, there's a lot of historical things that we could put around these bus shelters that companies can say, well, I invested in my community. Therefore, I have a reason to be there. Because that bus is a lifeline to people getting back and forth to work, getting food, medical equity. It plays a big role. And if you haven't caught it, you really don't notice that. But when that bus doesn't run and you have to call your boss and tell them you're late for the 3rd time because the bus was late or I didn't understand, then your bus, it fires you or you miss your medical appointment, that bus plays a big role in people's lives. And we as an art commission having this conversation around art can impact some of that and improve people's lives. So I'll send the document to Kelly and he can share it. Because it's better to read it than me share it on the screen. But I've had this conversation with Betsy about it because I didn't kind of know where to go with this because it became an art project for me. I started shooting outside the bus because I wanted to know what do the people on the bus perceive that looks the people outside the bus. And when you talk to people, it's a different conversation. When they're sitting on that bus and they're looking at you in your car, or they're driving by a store that they may not can go into, you say, hey, what do you think about Harris Teeter? Or what do you think about Flo Lexus? Or, when I'm at a place, it's a different conversation. Look at that guy with that suit, it's a different thing. But anyway, I'm not going to labor everybody with that. But that is something that I wrote all of that down, put it all together, and, got some advice. And Bessie helped me, kind of clean it up. So, Kelly, I'll send it to you. But it'll answer a lot of these questions.
That's awesome.
So it sounds like we have a lot of ideas for this. Do you just want to let the bus shelter group meet again and kind of come up with come up with a way forward, or would you all rather go in one direction or another? Meaning, would you rather concentrate on new physical shelters or more the temporary pieces with the historic ties at this point?
Are you talking about new shelters where there's just a pole currently? Or are you talking about relocate? Because I would think the transportation department would have to be involved if there was an actual relocation of a shelter.
Yeah, it would be where there's plans for a new shelter, but there is no shelter there yet.
Well, that may be phase 3. I haven't been so involved in it, so I don't really know, but I'd like to hear from people that, were involved or have been involved in it, what they think. Should we go for another group maybe what I hear is people we have a big interest in this, and this is something that we should carry on, even if it's do it every year, and carry on and make it better each time. So that's what I'm hearing. I'd like to hear from even more from people that are that set it up.
My ears perked up when Betsy said that Martha might be able to raise money.
Well,
for physical shelters.
I think getting that group back together and welcoming in anyone else who would like to join. It was a fairly small group, so if anyone from the commission wants to join that group, Owens, it would be great to have your involvement in that because of your having gone through the process, if you're interested in it. But I would think if there's enough interest in going forward with another 6, 8, 10, 12 bus shelters in a similar vein to the ones that we did, or with a place-based kind of focus, that we try to work through the more like the artistic bus shelters in terms of like the sculptural bus shelters or truly artist design shelters that would be a higher dollar item. I think that would be a really exciting step beyond, but that it's going to take longer to raise money, to raise interest, to figure out with this full group, what we want.
Yeah, Betsy, I totally agree with that plan. I'd love to see some artistic bus shelters that are artist designed in our city eventually. But I think for right now, keeping it to where we're just showcasing beautiful art on the shelters we have makes total sense to me. I'll be happy to come to that meeting if you'll let me know.
It sounds like everybody likes the idea. That's not a problem. So we don't have to worry about that. And if it's a money situation, then maybe we can only do a certain amount right now, like 6 more or whatever, if we know what the budget is, and we can move forward with that. The artistic bus shelters, I agree. Fantastic idea. There's probably so much we can do about where to put things, and we probably have to get with the planning commission or different people that aren't artistically involved. But I'm sure we have to work with another city group to do that. But I'm all for going for, like right now, with as many more bus shelters as we can.
Agreed. The more the merrier.
I was going to say, even going back to what Betsy was saying and saying that she may want to highlight like stories of communities of color on the bus shelters. I mean, right now is the time to ask if you're going to ask for anything that involves that idea and that concept. So I would say go hard or go home, right? And all they can say is no, continue to put, work with the bus shelters we have. But I would say, right now, especially during this kind of social evolution that's taking place in the United States and globally, if we have the research and the documentation that these stories need to be told, I think that more people, even outside of in the private sector, are willing to put funds towards those stories. So I would say ask now, get your no if that happens or whatever, but you may get a yes, that people are interested in creating, custom shelters made by artists that document certain historical events or communities that have been erased, right? And then, on top of having, the bus shelters redesigned, like I would make a really big ask, and then you can always scale it back if it doesn't work out the way you want to. But I think right now is a really wonderful time to ask for those things.
Yeah, at the same time, I hear your point about, not painting the bus shelters as for, people of color.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you could do, I think that's why if the artist designs the bus shelters, it could be about perception. It could be about opportunities. It could be about the environment, right? Giving artists the opportunity to do it. But I think the environment, social movements, all these causes are really heavily funded right now. And there's a lot of money circulating in that sphere. And so I think that if we capitalize on this moment and let artists kind of pick whichever specific perception or however they want to approach it, I would say I guess the point is just I think we should ask, and if people say no, whatever, but I think why not ask now, especially when we're dealing with climate change and so many things happening globally. People are just more likely to fund those type of projects. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well said. I agree. It is a time to do that.
Okay. Well, without trying to make the group too large, who is interested in taking part in that subgroup or committee?
Do it.
Eric, can you say your name? Sorry.
My name is John.
I just saw some hands go up. So I'm gonna be looking down and writing. So I hear John.
Janie Wilson.
Janie.
Elizabeth Repet.
Elizabeth Owens.
Mm-hmm. Jane Dab. And you may be getting too big. Who knows?
You're too big. We got to keep it under a quorum.
Oh, that's right.
Take me off. I've done it.
Okay, Jane's gone. Betsy, are you still interested?
You tell me. Is it helpful to have me on there?
Always.
Well, you know Martha, right?
Yeah. And she's got the energy to keep, she keeps it going. She's very passionate about this.
She is. All right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can I kick one of you off?
Sure.
Yeah.
Wait, who's getting kicked?
Jane,
you're on the 4th Street.
I know. We need Elizabeth to write the grant, so.
All right, John, Elizabeth, Owens, and Betsy. Does that sound
good?
Okay. I just don't want to get into meeting problems.
You should explain that to Owens that we have that thing. It's just
I had a little orientation with Owens, and that's just so, I want you to be able to write emails to each other and have like a reply all conversations, so that so it's not considered a public meeting if you guys are talking about this project. So
got it.
4 people would be
all right,
better
cool.
than 5.
Cool, that's great. That really is.
All right.
Excited.
There you go.
Kelly, you want to run through the project reports and or talk about those? We've got the 4th Street and the Winston-Salem Portrait Project.
Yeah, the Winston-Salem Portrait Project is a little more complicated than I care to say. So we had originally picked for the downtown sculpture to be on the south side of the new Strollway Bridge, the Strollway pedestrian bridge. It's going to have trees and stuff on it. And we kind of just checked in with Kristen Hoff, who had been the chair of Creative Corridors at the time. And she seemed to be on board, said it shouldn't be a problem. But She's since rolled off as the chair, and Creative Corridors has since begun planning a lot of designs for that south side, to honor Peter Oliver, who was a formerly enslaved man who lived in Salem and had a farm in that area. And then, a Black History walk going up that side of the bridge. So I looked at moving this to the north side of the bridge, which seems actually, after walking the area, it seems like a better place for the sculpture. You can see it well from First Street, from Liberty Street. It's actually higher in elevation because the bridge kind of goes up the hill a little ways. So it'd be at a higher point in the city. And I checked in with Councilmember Larson, whose ward this is in, and who's on the Creative Corridors board as well. I'm on the board too, but he's supportive of it. So I met with a core of Creative Corridors people yesterday, and some seemed supportive and some kind of seemed on the fence. I was asking for their support in this. So I'm going to talk to Councilmember Larson and just kind of see if we can move this forward and get this space for the sculpture once and for all, so we can move forward with that April unveiling.
Kelly, is that the space being the north side or the south side?
It would be on the north side.
Okay. Sorry.
So, and I can share, let me share a document here. Let's see. Thought I had, here, let me, hang on one second. I have to open.
Kelly, are they going to take that up? Isn't there a Creative Corridors board meeting tomorrow morning?
There is not. They canceled the October executive committee meeting, and they're waiting till November. Let me see here. Everybody see this?
Yes.
Can you see my mouse moving? So this is the south side where the strollway kind of does this little S. We were going to put the sculpture right in here. But now this on the north side looks like a better place. It's better for the scale of it. It's actually a smaller area. There's an electric box that we can tie into so we can light it up. You can see it from Liberty. You can see it from the strollway. It would have a good sight line from walking up the strollway here, from coming off the bridge here, and then there would be this sidewalk connection over to Liberty Street here. And it's just a slightly smaller space, which helps it too, since it's about 6.5 feet tall, I think. So,
Kelly, what are those round things on the north side? Are those bushes? I mean, are they going to grow up and hide the?
Well, we would have to move. We'd have to kind of change the landscaping plan a little bit. But yeah, I think those would be trees or bushes. But this piece of sidewalk isn't going to be built till a later stage anyway. So this piece is already built. So we might have to ask them to kind of hold off planting some trees, but the city might be planting these anyway after the project is completed.
Is that, excuse me for keep on asking questions, is that down And that's Salem Funeral Home on the other side of Liberty Street, correct?
Yes, right here.
Isn't that kind of sunken right there? Is that okay for where it is? For visibility's sake?
There's a slight hill between the Strollway and Liberty Street, but it's not, it's going to kind of step down a little bit the way they're moving the dirt. It's not just a hill.
Okay.
And what's across that sidewalk to the north?
That's where it goes down deep into that. There's kind of like a hole with another law office right here.
Okay. Well, I mean, I already spoke to Kelly about this, but the changes that are going to take place on the south side are so extensive and sculptural and nuanced that it feels to me like that would really be competing with the portrait project, and it would be at a much larger scale than the portrait project. And so it's, I was a little confused the last time we talked about these plans, but like Kelly, I think that this is a location that puts much more focus on the portrait project and allows it to have its own place in a very public place, rather than to be kind of fighting it out with Peter Oliver Plaza.
I have a question. Is it only accessible there in this new location by walking to it, or is it accessible in any way, near parking meters or lots or anything?
They're going to turn Liberty and Main Street into two-way streets, and I think that there will be on-street parking with those. There will be some on-street parking at some point because they're going to two-way first, second, Liberty and Main.
Right.
So they'll become kind of slower streets then.
Okay.
But you could park, you could park down here by Muse and kind of walk up, or park at the funeral home, I guess, and walk over, or park at City Hall, which is, just a block away.
Okay.
This is Dara. Are you able to get pretty close to it? Is there going to be some kind of landscape around where you can walk up to it?
Yeah, you'll be able to walk right up to it. Yep. And, part of the thinking about putting this along the strollway was that, even though it's kind of a large sculpture, it works with you by you need to come right up to it to be able to see the people's faces and the reflective surfaces and, read the text and things like that. So we didn't want it to be kind of a drive-by sculpture,
So would there be a possibility then of, it looks like this is a little bit of a blank canvas there up on that site. I'm just thinking of how you adapt the landscaping and the sidewalk potentially to the piece. It looks like there's some possibility of that. Like maybe you wouldn't want to, I don't know whether that's negotiable for the creative corridors, but I would remind them that the idea of putting public art into the creative corridors is also a big part of one of the goals of the creative corridors. And here they have something that's coming right to them. So I really hope that they see that this is not something that is in any way contradictory to what the goals of creative corridors are. It is a pedestrian piece, though. I agree with you. It's not a drive-by piece at all. Nobody will be able to understand it from a car, the scale of it.
I think the only thing they were worried about was more that, they're planning some kind of donor wall, and they were talking about it in this area, but I don't think it needs to be in this area. I mean, they have a lot of other space to work with. And Councilmember Larson just seemed supportive of having art along this this trail, you know, in different sections of it, not just one place, but having it continue as you go down the trail. And you know, we had applied for that grant to do artistic crosswalks where the strollway crosses Brookstown, 1st, 2nd, 3rd of 4th Streets. And that would also continue art along this path. But we might be able to, you know, like I said, this sidewalk that's in black here is a secondary project. So the contractor who's building this now isn't doing the parts that are in black. That's going to be left to the city. And this bridge actually is not going to be built at all, it doesn't sound like. If it is, it's not going to be for a very long time. So this sidewalk would be a city project. So, you know, we'll talk to the city DOT to see what we would need to do.
Okay. Thanks, Kelly. That's good. It's all good.
For the other project reports, 4th Street, the deadline is this Friday. I think 2 people have submitted things already. And then for the memory wall, we got 3 applications, all from people who you know, seem really qualified, with different price points. And that committee is going to meet next week to kind of go over those and see if they want to interview the people, and then hopefully have a recommendation to all of you.
Great.
Okay.
So the next thing on the agenda was rescheduling the November meeting. And this was something I brought up just because the November meeting landed on election day. Some people are volunteering then. So I brought up the idea of moving it, and I sent out a doodle poll, and there was not actually any single time where everybody could meet. But I'm bringing up that doodle poll now. There were 2 where we had 8 people. Oh, and this was pre-Owens. Owens didn't get to participate in this. So let me see if I can open this. The times that were best were the next Tuesday, November 10th, at either 11 a.m. or 3 p.m. And Dara had something going on at the 3 p.m. meeting, and Betsy had something going on if we had the 11 a.m. meeting. Or you could just decide to just keep the meeting on the 3rd.
I can just leave my class early that day. I just might be like 5 minutes late to the meeting.
Okay.
Which time?
At 11 a.m.
Yeah, I'll just ditch my students.
Thanks, Betsy. And if it's only 5 minutes, that's helpful. I have a meeting right at 3 o'clock. That might last.
No, it's fine. They have work they can be doing at that time. So I'll just cancel the last little bit of class and be fine.
Owens, does that work for you? November 10th at 11 a.m.?
November 10th at 11 a.m.?
Instead
That's
of
fine.
the usual November 3rd? Okay.
Yeah. You saying November 10th?
Yes.
Okay. At 11 a.m.?
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Kelly.
Sorry, I saw Betsy had a text to me. Sorry, you want to share the idea of a COVID memorial, but you have to bail now, don't you?
Yeah, I just wrote my other meeting and said I could be a couple minutes late to that. If y'all are game for me to share for 2 minutes, something I was thinking about as a possibility, and I have no idea if we have bandwidth, money, or anything else to take this on. But is that okay if I take 2 more minutes of everyone's time? Okay. So last Tuesday, we topped 100 people in Forsyth County who had lost their lives to COVID-19. And at the same time, it just came across my my radar that some cities are responding with different kinds of memorials to people whom they had lost. And the one that really struck me, sorry, I'm scrolling down to find it here. The one that particularly struck me was this memorial. And I just imagined, so this is it's a drive-by celebration of these people's lives. And I imagined like a designer working with photographs that families or loved ones submitted. And so I don't know if it in any way fits inside our, inside what we want to do, but I just wanted to share that as something maybe to think about for next time, or if there is a group that wanted to take it on. And I said to Kelly, can I share this? But I'm also in over my head with too much work this semester. And so I don't know that, that I would be game to take much leadership, but it struck me as very, very meaningful in helping people see the losses.
Is this temporary or I mean, for
this is in Detroit, and it's very temporary. Okay. And I could imagine that after the time, so it's just a drive-by memorial, but I haven't dug in to see, like, are these in the convention center for a month after that? Is there an online library of these images afterwards? Is there any kind of permanent, like the one that has just the engraved names? Is there some kind of permanent, this is September 11th. But
my first reaction is, at what point do you cut it off? I mean, this thing's going to go on for a while. I mean, what the timing of this could be just, I don't know. And then how do you, depending on what it is, do you add to it or do you do a second phase? Those are my first reactions. I do think it's a nice idea.
I could find out more information. My friend's grandfather died in Detroit, and so his picture was up in that drive-by of photographs. And so I can let you know whether or not it was put up in another place. I can text him and find out if it was put up in another place. I mean, I think that it is something that's I think it's a wonderful idea, Betsy, personally. I've lost 2 people. So, 2 cousins. So, for me, I think it's a great idea. I think that it can happen in phases. It's going to be with us, like Jane said, for a while. So it could be something that happens now. I mean, Winston-Salem hasn't experienced as many COVID deaths as, like, say, a Detroit or a Florida or a New York, right? And so, we've only, I think, 100 people maybe at this point. So maybe there is some type of, photographic and really it doesn't even take much work because they just got a picture, like it's not like you're going and taking a picture of the deceased or something, you know what I'm saying? Like, or it's just a collection of photographs, printing them a large scale and putting them up in a place that can be visibly seen where people could drive by. So I think it's a really wonderful idea. And I would love to help you. Just let me know.
Yeah, I think it's great wonderful because the invisibility, I think, of death is one of the things that so much about this virus and what's happened. It's like something that people don't see and we're not aware of. Many people are not aware of. So, whether it could be an ongoing project, setting up as an ongoing project, I would say let's bring this up let's think about this and think about it for our next meeting. Look for some more examples. And I too am pretty swamped right now with work, but I would love to see something like this. I'd be so supportive of it, and I think it would catch the public imagination as well. Just trying to figure out how to do it would also be something that'd be pretty interesting. Like one of the things that I've thought about is I have a student now who's working on lampposts and just putting banners, a photographic printed banner up on lampposts. I don't even know how many lampposts we would have, but something like that would be in between temporary and permanent, something that would last a little bit longer, and that could really be something. So,
Yeah. Before we log off, I wanted to ask, does anybody know have the contact information for Samantha Fox? She's a Black beekeeper here in Winston. I am trying to get in contact with her. I've had a hard time. Does anybody have her email or phone number?
I don't have her email phone number, but I know I'm photographing her tomorrow or Friday, something like that. So I'll try to find it because I'm with Christine Rucker working on another project that has something to do with that.
Okay. Yeah, if you could, I would need her contact before then, but does anybody have her email address? Black beekeeper in Winston, female Black beekeeper.
Do you know Michael Banner?
No.
I'll write Michael right now and ask him. I know I just saw them in a photograph together, so I don't know so I can write Michael and ask him.
Okay, great. All right, thanks. It's random, but I've been trying to contact her. It's been a little hard. Yes.
I guess we don't have any public commentary, do we, Kelly? Anybody out there waiting?
Anybody in the participant list? Nope.
Larry's name, but I don't know if he's here.
Yeah, Larry's our marketing communications person who's getting this meeting on the web. No public comments.
Are we ready to adjourn?
I think so.
Okay. Well, let's adjourn the meeting and thank you all. We will remember about some of these things we've talked about. We need to bring these up and get some ideas and action going for the next time. And Kelly, you're going to email us about the council's bringing up approval of the plan, and let us know about that. Great.
And Kelly also needs to email us the new date and time of that meeting.
New date and time of that meeting. And
reminder.
Also send out Owen's piece on the buses.
Right.
And we got to discuss Owen's initiation at some point. We're on a Zoom meeting and normally we have that in person. So we'll have to get that together and get back to you, Owen.
Yep.
It's not too bad. It's just one night.
Yeah. Most everybody already know or met in some capacity. So it's not that new.
All right. I'm glad to have you on board. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.